going on. Welcome you back to the Patrick Netherton Show here on 1130 The Tiger. We're pleased to welcome in ESPN play-by-play voice, a guy I got to know a little bit a couple of years ago up in Corvallis, Oregon, and the man who has the best quarantine hair in the business right now. He is Anish Shroff, who joins us. What's up, my man? How are you?
You know, that hair's going away. I've got an appointment on Friday because we'll have to be on camera. We'll have to be on camera this Saturday. Yeah, they've got the on-camera setup figured out. So, man, those locks are going away this Friday.
No, I'm got. Who do I need to call? I'm telling you, man, that is the best head of hair in television. If you put that thing on the tube right now, it is the best head of hair on television. I need to call somebody.
Maybe I'll keep it. I need a dye job for sure, but maybe I'll keep the locks. We'll see.
Like every good television broadcaster, you can't actually have gray hair. So, you know what? No doubt. I don't mind you dyeing it, but man, don't cut it all off. That thing is the thing I love is there are a lot of broadcasters, and some of whom I'm very good friends with, that have paid a lot of good money to have a decent head of hair. Not even a good head of hair, just a decent head of hair. And you've got this mane going on, and you're going to go cut it. I can't deal with it, Anish. I can't handle that.
It's bittersweet because a lot of neglect went into this. I have not had a haircut since February. I've let this thing grow. It's gone wild. It's to the point now where, if I don't wear a hat 24/7 around the house, this thing gets in my eyes. It gets in my ears. So a lot of neglect went into it. Time well spent.
Yeah, now look, I don't mind you trimming it up a little bit, right? You don't want it in your face and your eyes, that kind of thing. You got a job to do. But at least don't go back to the short look. We gotta keep some depth and some volume on that thing.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe a game time decision. We'll see.
All right. So let's talk about dealing with this. You mentioned you already called a game, but you hadn't had to cut your hair because you were in studio, weren't on camera. Your broadcast partner was basically showing up straight off the beach, it looked like. Walk me through how to deal with this, because I'm a play-by-play guy. I've done some television here and there, but I've always been at the venue, always there, always can see what's going on. Tell me about dealing with the challenges of just being able to see whatever the cameras show you.
It's different, and challenge is the right word. It's different. It's something that we have to get used to. It probably takes a half just to get calibrated. So for people listening, when we're at a game and you're calling a football game, I've got my binoculars, I'm watching the field, I've got a talent stat sitting next to me, he's feeding me nuggets. At the end of every play, he's got a little board with numbers, and he'll point to 8 or 15, the length of the play, so I'll use that if I don't have it right away. I have a spotter standing on the other side of me, and I have a spotting board with all the players' names on offense and defense, and he'll point to whoever made the tackle. Before the game, he's pointing to any substitutions, hey, the third receiver's in the game, second running back's in the game, wildcat formation, whatever. So you kind of have so much of this support system built in, and then you've got your analyst and you've got your monitors, and when they're in a replay and they're talking, you can kind of look at the field with one eye, look at the monitor with one eye, and as complicated as that setup seems, the more you do it, it becomes second nature. And so your eyes know exactly where to go and when. And when your analyst is talking over a replay, you peek over at the field, and if they're slow to line up, you have a chance for a follow-up question. You have a chance to maybe put a period on what he said. And when he's done, if they're getting ready to snap the ball, shut the hell up and lay out for the snap and then call the play. So, again, when you're sitting in a studio, you just can't see as much. You're only seeing half the field to begin with.
Yeah.
I can't have a stats and spotter next to me because we've got to socially distance, right? So my talent stats basically is in a chat box on a computer screen through Zoom and is writing in a chat box, and I'm trying to look at and read what he's telling me, but again, I don't know if he sent it 2 plays ago. I don't know if he sent it 2 seconds ago,
right.
2 minutes ago. There's no delete function. So, you kind of have to get creative, and we've gone back to the drawing board to see how we can work that. My spotter, who will normally point, well, we basically had a second spotter come to our Charlotte studio, sit in a different room with this GoPro-like contraption where he's got my spotting board enlarged in front of him. The spotter at site is feeding him information, and he's pointing at it, and I'm looking at it almost on a projector. All right?
Yeah.
These are just like the ancillary things besides calling the game that you're trying to figure out. And then calling the game itself, again, normally, like I said, when you see a replay on your television screen, I can see the field. Well, in this case, when you see a replay on the television screen, that's what I see too.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if the next play is going to start. I don't know if they've already started, if they're going to be late. So you feel kind of naked. And so it was a lesson in do less. Less is more, do less better. Because, yes, there's going to be certain things and certain times where you're going to feel naked and you're going to get caught just because, again, you're not there. And there's things that you might be able to see or people who might be able to see it for you and relay that information, and you don't have that. So it was certainly different. It's certainly different. You're really at the mercy of what you're being shown. And, it's a lot of over-communication with your producer, with your director, to make sure you're not missing anything. And thankfully we had, in Chris Budden, a really good sideline reporter who was there and was our eyes and ears, who could feed us some information during breaks and feed it through our producer as well.
That's the other thing, because you have sort of a split squad going on. You've got, Budden's there. You mentioned you got a spotter that's on site, but you also have your spotter with you. The communication that has to go on, and I tell people all the time, when you're doing play-by-play, it is basically trying to convey what you're trying to convey while chaos is going on around you at all times. You're getting 5 sources of input, somebody in your ear, someone pointing at something next to you, a talent stat guy holding up stats, and you're trying to pick and choose what you want to convey on the air while also making sure your color analyst is being set up and is involved as well. But what happens when that now becomes everybody's in all kind of different locations? The challenges of just communicating with each other when you don't necessarily have that visual to be able to look at someone and point to what you want.
The difference is all that chaos that you pointed out, you get used to it, so it doesn't really feel like chaos.
Sure.
Right? If I'm from New Jersey, so it's, hey, man, this is Jersey traffic. To me, it's just driving because you're used to
right.
it. Hey, like they're honking and they're cutting you off. Well, that's kind of what we do. And, you get accustomed to it, and you basically alter your driving skills and your skill set to adjust for your conditions. And so, that becomes second nature, kind of trafficking through all that organized chaos. But, again, what's different here, it's a unique setup. It's the first time we're in this setup. So you're trying to get calibrated. Hey, where do my eyes go? I'm going from point A to point B to point C. And now you're adding, again, these chaotic elements, but in a different format. They look different. It's almost like, I think I know the play, but we're lined up in a different formation, and that takes some getting used to. So, I think that's where you see maybe, a few bumps and a few rocky moments. Again, just kind of getting calibrated, and not just for us. I think it's for everybody. It's a
Sure.
different setup for everybody. And a lot of times, you're at a game, you see things, and you can convey that to your producer and to your director, and they can help you out. Now it's the other way around. So, it's a brave new world, and it's a brave new world for everybody. But I do think our viewers and our fans understand, listen, we want to see football. We want to see our society get back to normal. Sports is a part of that. And for the time being, in the short term, if this is how we have to bring you sports, I think most people are willing to put up with that, and certainly we are.
Anish Shroff, play-by-play man for ESPN, joining us. I'm curious, do you have any on-site broadcasts set up yet, or is everything you're doing remote as of now?
So as of now, this week I'll be remote again. I'll be at Clemson in 2 weeks, and that will be on site.
Okay. So at least y'all are getting to get back to some sense of normalcy at some point when you get there. Who do you have this week, by the way?
This week we have Houston Baptist and Texas Tech. Should be a real close game. You want to watch that one?
Well, I will say this: Bailey Zappi did lead the FCS in passing last year, Anish.
Sure did.
So, threw for 400 last week against North Texas. So, at least if nothing else, you're going to see him air it out a lot. They throw it a ton. So if you look, if you need any Houston Baptist information, you know where I am. We do see those guys in the Southland every year, after all.
Yeah, they've got a game under their belt. In fact, Texas Tech doesn't. So you never know, but we'll see.
Well, so. I think we know. I mean, never know is probably a little bit too strong there. I think we know. But look, Houston Baptist is entertaining in the fact that they're going to throw it 50, 60, 70 times if they have to. That's what Bailey Zappi does. That's what their offense is built around. All right, so for you, transitioning from, okay, I'm in the studio to now I'm going to get to go back live and on site, are there anything that being on site concerns you, whether it's COVID protocols, whether it's what you have available to you in the press box? Is there anything that is a concern transitioning back to on site broadcasting?
No, not really. We're really good as a company about just having protocols. Basically, even when we're in the building, we're wearing masks pretty much at all times unless we're actually on the air. Mm-hmm. I had few people chirp at me, "Oh, you guys weren't wearing masks," and we were calling the game. So
you want to hear us calling the game with our masks on?
Right. When you're watching other studio shows, whether it's CNN, Fox, SportsCenter, NBC, whoever, they're not wearing masks while in the studio. But that offended some people who actively seek to get offended. Beyond the point, I think there'll be a sense of normalcy, once we're on site. But our company, man, they do everything right in terms of getting us tested. If we're going to be on site, we'll be tested during the week. And should something happen, they've got contingency plans. Before we enter the building, they check our temperature. They've got hand sanitizer stations everywhere. Mm-hmm. And again, when we're not on the air, we're wearing a mask at all times. So you actually feel pretty safe. And to be in that building and to be on site, I think everybody realizes what's at stake. It takes one person, and it doesn't have to be a player or a coach. I mean, it could be anybody. It takes one person to mess it up for everybody. So, you got people's livelihoods at stake. I think we're all extra cautious in making sure we don't do anything to put others at risk, and obviously to do anything to put a team or a season at risk.
Yeah. Do you just tell everyone that gets mad that you weren't wearing a mask that it was Steve Levy instead that was not wearing a mask? They should take it up with him?
Well, they could see me. They could see me.
Well, that
so,
ruins it then. Yeah.
Can't really use the Levy line there, huh?
Hey, that is fun, though. You literally are a vocal doppelganger for Steve Levy. I don't know that I sound like anybody else that I know of, but you really do. Y'all sound very similar when you're calling a game. Do you have? Is that something you have fun with? Is that something that you go, okay, really, this again, the Levy stuff? How do you react to that when people tell you about it?
I got a great story for you. So this goes back. So again, it's funny. Levy and I have joked about it, and he gives me a hard time about it. Hey, man, stop stealing my voice. You got to put money in the cookie jar every time you're on the air.
Right.
I don't really see it, and he doesn't really see it either, but other people certainly see it, and you're not the only one.
No.
So I know there's a certain similarity there, but this was years ago when I was in Bristol working as a studio anchor, and I was doing a cut-in for a Mets-Cardinals game, I think, and we were going back to Citi Field, and I was about to say we're going to go back to Shea Stadium, and I realized, wait a minute, they don't play at Shea anymore. It was their first season at Citi Field, so I said, let's go back to Citi Field. But I combined at the beginning of Shea.
You put the SH. You put the SH on there.
Yeah, and that's a word you can't say on TV. And I did it completely by accident. I had no idea I said it. So 3 innings later, my producer comes to me and he goes, "Hey, did you say bleepity field?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't think so." And he goes, "Okay, I'm getting some emails and texts. Somebody said they might have heard you say." Well, I said, "There's one sure way to check this. Let's go on Twitter and do a search." And I said, "Oh, no, I said it. I clearly said it."
Yeah.
And a bunch of people thought it was Levy because I wasn't on camera. And about, I don't know, a week or so later, maybe not even a week later, I get an email from Levy. There's no subject line. And the message says, "Bro, you're killing me." And there's a link to this blog. So I click the blog. And as you know, Steve had a unfortunate slip up on the SportsCenter desk years ago.
Bulging disc.
Meant to say bulging disc. It came out as something else.
You're right.
So the headline of this blog article was bulging bleep anchor says bleepity field.
Poor Levy. That's beautiful. Oh, I love that.
So I passed that one on to him.
Oh,
so, it's got its benefits too when I get in trouble.
That's true. You can always pass it off on him. Now, I do want kind of on a I don't want to say I don't know. You can tell me how serious this is. One of the kind of ongoing jokes is there is a cabal of guys up at Bristol at ESPN. Dari Noka, Adam Amin, Kevin Nagandi, y'all have a crew that all get sort of confused for each other. You're all of the same ethnic heritage. You all kind of look alike. Whatever these people think, they come at you and they mix up your name tags. They're calling you different things on Twitter. They're tagging you in things you didn't say. Y'all like to laugh it off and y'all like to have fun with it. But is there an undercurrent of, man, this is kind of ridiculous. I am who I am. Recognize who I am. Don't confuse me with someone else just because we might, have a similar skin color. Is there some seriousness to that y'all try to play off, but also can be a little bit hurtful?
Yeah, I think so. And I think in the beginning, it was sort of an inside joke amongst people we knew, and it kind of got out, right? And so I think intent is always important. When somebody making the joke is somebody you're comfortable with and familiar with, it may not mean the same as somebody who's coming out of left field and from the top rope, and it's, all right, dude, who are you,
Yeah.
It can be the same thing and the same message, but depending on who says it and how well you know them, it could be considered inbounds or out of bounds. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I think in the beginning for us, one, we're not really represented all that well in this industry, so there's a small group of us. And, we all don't share the same ethnic heritage. We're all from...
Right.
Well, I mean, I guess in one sense we do. We're all Americans, but our parents are all from different places, and that's what people like to look at for whatever reason.
Sure.
So, fine. And people say, okay, well, you guys are all the same and all the same. And, again, when you really don't have that platform and representation, it becomes this balancing act. Do you go all scorched earth and try to be offended over this, even though you may not completely like it, or do you try to use humor to laugh it off? And in the beginning, we all sort of said, all right, we'll play along with it. And then I think we probably were a little guilty of playing along with it too much, and all of a sudden it encouraged a lot of people who, again, we didn't know that well, that were not in on this, because there is kind of a story behind it where, there was actually an honest mix-up and it kind of turned into something and way back when. But now all these other people are kind of coming in, and now it's gotten to the point where we don't really acknowledge it all that much. I know I stopped acknowledging it all that much because,
right.
We've all carved out a nice place in this industry. We're all different. We all have different skill sets. And while we're all friends, we're also unique and we're also individuals. And that can sometimes come off as you're diminishing who each of us is individually. And so I've kind of stopped playing along with it. I've really kind of stopped acknowledging it. When it comes from people that I don't know, to be honest with you, it's just kind of like, especially people in the industry. I mean, I always say, like, would you say that to another black anchor? Like, hey, all you guys look the same. Or
right.
a Hispanic anchor, all you guys look the same. Or an Asian anchor. But there's so few of us, it's kind of like, hey, there's not very many of them, so let's pick on them. And I think we've kind of felt that a little more. And, I think the more we've been in this, it's, hey, like, we've done some stuff, too. We've called championship games. We've called big events.
Yeah.
We've hosted big shows. Why can't we stand on our own 2 feet instead of being lumped together as, this monolithic block? And, I think we tried to play it off with humor early on, but I've gotten to the point now where I'm tired of it, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable. And as you mentioned, y'all are all doing such a great job of carving out your own paths, and they're not the same. You're not all on SportsCenter. So you and Adam are doing a lot of play-by-play, and Dari's carving out his niche at SEC Network. That I guess sort of the best revenge is success in this regard, right? The more you're able to make your name and the more people are able to see who you are individually, the less, I guess, you have to worry about this. Is that fair, or is that maybe simplifying things too much?
You know, there are certain cultural touchstones that are in play, and it's hard to get into, you know, just on a radio conversation. Sure. But I'm glad you brought up the topic, because the reality is our culture is not mainstream, right? And I'll give you an example where if you have a black anchor and they are, again, dropping hip-hop references, and I'm not trying to stereotype right here. You get what I'm doing.
Sure.
Right? That stuff is normalized. Or if a Hispanic anchor or a Hispanic on-air personality would roll their R, or, again, do something that is, apropos of their culture or associated with their culture, that's okay.
Right.
We're not at the point where we feel like we can push our culture into the mainstream. And, you know, it's kind of that fine line. And so what happens, you all get grouped into, again, this kind of one little block, and people can't see the nuance. Like, I'm not going to go on the air and drop tikka masala references, because people would look at me like, what are you talking about?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
So we're not there yet, and I hope we can get there at some point where our culture kind of becomes part of this great American quilt too, and I think parts of it have seeped in, but not all parts of it. And so we're cognizant of that. We're aware of that. You know, even being a minority, we're not on the same playing field. We don't have the same cultural representation and the same cultural inroads within the American culture that, again, people from Hispanic or black backgrounds or even some Asian backgrounds have. We just don't have that. So, you know, as we kind of try to build up this currency, being seen as an individual means something, because, you know, as much as we all root for each other and we kind of see our success in each other and our peers' success in ourselves, I think we kind of realize, hey, if we can separate ourselves and see each other and have everybody see us as individuals, you know, that's an opportunity, too, for people to be more accepting of our culture and our backstory, and allowing for that backstory to be woven in a little more in the fabric that is America.
That's perfectly said, Anish. It really is. And look, I think, you know, I'm friends with Dari. I'm better friends with Adam Amin. You know, I like to think that I'm friendly with you as well. And I find it refreshing and also you know, really heartening to see that y'all are pushing things in that direction, that y'all are opening a lot of eyes. And you know, I look at a guy like Adam, and who's so young and is doing such a great job as a youngster. You know, guys like y'all are the ones that are going to be, y'all are the Stewartscots of your culture at this point, right? Like, that's, Stuart Scott is the one that kind of brought the hip hop references into sports and made that popular and mainstream. Y'all are kind of the Stewartscots of bringing your cultures up forward. Fair?
Right, and the thing, it is fair in terms of how we look, right? And I think how much of our culture can we actually infuse into what we do on the air, that is probably the next step for all of us.
Yeah.
Because I think we're fully aware not all of that is mainstream. Not all of that has yet to be accepted. So, you know, you bring up a great point. I mean, I've never actually talked to anybody about this on the air before, and I'm really glad you brought it up, because it is something that we talk amongst ourselves quite a bit. I mean, it is. We had a Zoom call, you know, right when this pandemic hit, and you know, there was just the 5 or 6 of us, and this came up, and we talked about it. And it was just kind of, you know, it wasn't for anybody, just us catching up and kind of talking about different things that we're affected by. But you know, I think we're getting there. I think we're getting there. You're starting to see parts of, you know, South Asian culture, you know, make its way in the mainstream, but we're not quite there yet. And, you know, we also sort of fight a battle on 2 fronts, where what we're doing for a living is not completely accepted by our communities either.
Yeah.
You know, it is one of these subgroups that, for whatever reason, has done well in America. And it is, hey, you got to be a doctor, you got to be a lawyer or an engineer. Going into the arts or journalism or television or movies or Hollywood, is not something that, again, is fully accepted. So we sort of see that as part of our role, too, where, hey, if there's other people out there who look like us, they can point to us and say, look, it can be done. And maybe that encourages more representation. And if we have more representation, then I think you have the power to educate people and teach people and open up your culture to others.
Talking to Anish Shroff from ESPN, I'm going to say Jackie Robinson, and that's going to feel like a heavy load, right? That's a big name. But at the same time, when you are pioneering in a culture, and obviously Jackie Robinson was bringing blacks into the face of Major League Baseball, and the stuff that he had to endure. And I don't know that you have to endure the kind of things he has to endure. We're a much more inclusive group of people now than we were back in his day. But just the idea that you have to maybe respond differently than you'd like to people in order to kind of keep your agenda moving forward in a way. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. But, Jackie couldn't respond to anything the way he wanted to because he was so aware of the weight that he was carrying for his culture. Do you feel some way burdened by that where, I might want to lash out at someone, but you know what? I need to take a different path because I'm one of the forerunners of my group of people.
Yeah, these last 5-6 months sort of make you take stock of that, right? Where you see what's going on in our country and what's going on when it comes to race and social justice and just what we deal with. And I can tell you for a fact, there was a job that I was up for once that they told me flat out, hey, you're the best candidate for this job, and the only reason we can't hire you is because your name is too ethnic. And they already had somebody with an ethnic name in their sports department, and hey, we can't have two people with an ethnic name in the same sports department in a Midwestern town. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, as much as that hurt, what do I do? What do I say? And I went and I talked to some people, and I talked to some mentors, and the feedback that I got was, hey, listen, I wouldn't make a big stink about this. You don't want to get blackballed. You don't want to get blacklisted. And so what you do is you push the line back, and you normalize that. And, hey, this is just the cost of doing business to survive, advance, and succeed in this world. I'm going to have to put up with this. I go back to high school. I remember this very vividly. I was telling somebody the other day, I had a high school teacher who came to me my sophomore year. I had written a paper on Lincoln, and I've always had a great fascination with the American presidency. He wrote a paper on Lincoln, and he comes to me and says, all right, I have to talk to you about your paper. And I said, yeah. I said, what happened? He said, this is the best paper that I've read in 30 years of teaching. And before I could say anything, the next words out of his mouth were, now you want to tell me who wrote it?
Oh, boy.
And I was floored. And I remember my parents being called in. Plagiarism is a serious charge, and I had really worked hard on this. It was a topic that I enjoyed. I loved history, loved the Civil War. And so we meet in his office, and he's asking me, well, what does this mean, and what does this mean? And I'm giving him the answer, and he really has no proof. And so finally he just kind of looks down at me, and he says, so how does someone like you know so much about American history with, the suggestion being overt? How does somebody who looked like you and with your name,
right,
who's clearly ethnic, whose parents clearly are not from here, how do you know so much about American history? And I'm kind of taking that in, and I'm thinking, well, I was born here. I am an American. And I remember going to other teachers and telling them, hey, should I do something about this? Should I say something about this? And they told me the same thing. Hey, this is a guy with a lot of clout. He runs the history department. You've got 2 more years at this high school. You have prospects for a bright future. This is a guy that can make life miserable for you academically over the next 2 years. So, let's just get through his class, and then you won't have to deal with him again, and let's not make a big stink about it. So the message there is, again, what? You just have to take that, and you have to accept that, and you have to normalize that. And that's the cost of doing business. And these last 5-6 months, I've just taken stock of other events like that, some big, some small. And you say to yourself, should I have spoken up? Should I have said something? Certainly I feel more empowered now to do that than I was before. But, yeah, you're protective of the brand in a lot of ways, right? Do I want to be that outspoken minority and be seen as the loud, angry brown guy? and all of a sudden people are going to shun me because, hey, he's going to make a big stink, even though I'm making a big stink about something legitimate. Right?
Yeah.
I'm crying about something legitimate. And so that's always in the back of your mind, and that's been in the back of my mind. And I've been mad at myself for the last 5-6 months, kind of going back in my life. Why didn't I say something before?
I hear you. No, that's, and you know what though, Anish, I don't want to go too high-minded and spiritual or anything.
I'm going to start paying you, man. You're going to be like my therapist.
Well, no, but here's the thing. But here's the thing. These are things that need to be talked about, right? I host a sports talk radio show, but anybody that listens to my show knows I talk about so much more than sports, because sports is just one little thing in the world. There's so much more that goes on in life, and these are the kind of things that are happening in this world that people need to discuss and need to hear about. So the thing I would say to you is you had to take all of that stuff, because in the end, that gets you to a point where you can change it for the next generation. It sucks that you
that's
had.
What you hope.
It sucks that you had to deal with it. But the hope is that because you're reaching a success level and your buddies are reaching a success level where you can change the future generations' outcomes and how they have to deal with things. And that's what I hope for you, man. That's what I hope for all of y'all.
I appreciate you saying that. I do. I really mean that, and I appreciate you bringing this stuff up. I'm glad it's something that we got a chance to talk about. I can tell you it wasn't planned.
No, it was not. I planned to just, but these are things again, Anish, that need to be discussed, man. They really do. They need to be aired out in public, and you're a guy I know that could handle those questions well, and I knew you'd have good answers for them, even though I didn't intend to go that deep. Man, I'm glad we did. I really did. Look, have a great time this weekend, and we're looking forward to getting you back out at the venue at Clemson, and hope for a safe and healthy football season all the way through, brother.
All right, I appreciate it, Pat. Thanks for having me on, and be healthy, be safe, and you too, man. Have a great fall.
All right, Anish Shroff, ESPN play-by-play man.